It is indeed an honor to introduce and welcome our next speaker, Mr. Sunil Lulla, Chairman at the Astrum Reputation Advisory. Sunil comes with 4 decades of experience in building brands and growing businesses, startups, and turnarounds across media, digital, music, advertising, audience measurement, and the FMCG space. Prior to joining Astrum, he has helmed the leadership roles across many companies, which include Broadcast Audience Research Council, that's BARC, Balaji Telefilms Limited, Grey Group India, Times Television Network, India.com, Sony Entertainment, JWT, HMV, and MTV. Today, as he joins us for REPRISE, he will share insights on technology reshaping communicators.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was given 2 tasks. The first was an easy one. After lunch, put everybody to sleep. Okay, how many of you want to go to sleep? Put your hands up. I always follow a popular vote. And the other one was try hard to keep everybody awake. How many of you interested? Okay. Most did not say anything, so you all are being politically correct by not giving an opinion. How many of you in this room are scared of the word or the experience of technology? I'd like to see some hands up, please. Because otherwise I'm going to assume we could discuss Enid Blyton, Noddy, or Mills and Boon. What do you prefer? So, how many of you are scared about technology? How many of you feel that if you don't do something about it fast enough, it might make it very difficult for you to perform the way you wish to perform? Yes, no? So you're not different, right, from what most people feel. How many of you believe in this title, technology is and will reshape communications? So which is not to replace the individuals and the collective teams that are here, because nobody can replace human beings. But technology is certainly changing our way of thinking, living, and doing. And I'll tell you why I say this. Because we did spend some time doing research, more than 4 months of research. The names that you read there, whether it's The Economist, it's Forbes, it's PwC, etc., are companies whose journals, whose writings, and whose publishings that we studied to understand what they had to say about technology through their reports, through their webinars, through their podcasts, looking at how they were being seen through the lens of experts. The companies that we spoke to are there in the box over there, from a BCG to Google to Dell to others that you can see over there, getting their opinion. So not just the opinion of people in this room, but just reflecting broadly within India and outside of India. And the nature of people we spoke to were professors, deans, CEOs, global heads, partners, directors, promoters. And their collective view is what we want to share with you in the next few slides. So their view, and I think maybe your view too, it certainly is mine, it's like the new gold rush, right? GPT. We believe that this is going to be something that I either learn more about, I do more about, or I get wiped out. Do you know what happened in the gold rush? Does anyone remember? If you're old enough to be born then, no. Or you know through knowledge what happened in the gold rush? Very few people survived. Most, because of their greed, chased it, did not understand it, went looking for gold, and did not survive. With that lovely look that Rishikesh just gave me, I know I have 2 minutes more. Hi, Rishi. It's but natural for us to be defensive about it. But the people who should really worry about it is the workforce that is yet to come, that I would say are under 35 years. That's the workforce that is yet to come. You can master this, you can learn this, you can demonstrate technology, and then you can rule. And then there are those who, like me, fall in that category of 45 and above. That's very gracious to have that number. So we have to learn. We've got to understand this, not get scared about it. The last thing to do is to actually copy something on ChatGPT and present it in a public place, or even present it to yourself. We are blessed to have intelligence, so let's use that. And the word of technology is not new. The fact that it is scaring the daylights out of us is not new. That it's going to change things is not new. We have seen through recent timelines that all of you will be familiar with. It took 3.5 years for Netflix to reach 1 million subscribers. It took 1 hour for Thread to reach that number, right? And that time scale is not very, very wide from the time that you know Netflix and the time you know Thread. So people are accessing things. It's making a difference. Even now, when I look around the room, most of you have your head bent at about 70 or 80 degrees, which is actually not a good thing to do. You're looking at your palms. Your future is not written in your palms, actually written somewhere between here and here. Okay? These lines are formed out of some other reasons. That's what technology does. It takes away our attention span. And it forces us sometimes to miss the obvious. So where is automation taking place? In your office? Possibly. Okay? So we are seeing it that there are two ways to look at automation. To look at it with generative artificial intelligence or without. And with artificial intelligence. And you know why that is scary? Because that's a language that speaks in text. We speak a language largely in text. Sometimes visually, sometimes a combination of symbolism, text, and visual. And that's a language that's not code, it's not 0-1, it's not binary. And that's what makes it scary. So where do we see this technology? Where do we see the process taking place? In office support, most certainly. In production work, factories and the like, most certainly. Food services, a big extent. Where do we see it less? In education. Where do we see it less? In customer sales, with business and legal professionals compared to the rest on the top, right? The biggest gap is really in education. And do you know why that is? Because we still prefer to learn from a human being. We want to see those eyes, we want to see that laughter, we want to see that entire movement, even if it's digital. And that's when knowledge comes in. And if you remember this, you'll know that's where you make a difference, right? There are going to be reduction of jobs, there's going to be increase of jobs. And I'm only setting the context over here. Net off, there'll be less jobs. So the more we learn and the better we get using technology, using artificial intelligence, using generative artificial intelligence, the smarter we will be. Let's look at our industry, right? The larger part of our industry is called communications. One part of the quadrant is called reputation. The larger part of the industry is called communications. Used largely today for desktop research. And if you look at the reds, that just shows you where it's not being used. Creative idea generation, yes. In some people's language, it's called copy-paste. Data analytics, we have not yet used it fully the way we should. There's great potential for us to do what we can with it. Writing articles, some places have got stricter. You apply for a university, either premium university in India or in the US, they run your submission through a process where they know if you've copied it using the help of artificial intelligence, and you go straight in the bin. Some campuses are even doing it for submissions made by the students, right? So if you were to write a research report using ChatGPT, you will get caught out. As simple as that. So we're seeing where it's coming into play. We're not seeing it so much into play in data visualization and media monitoring and writing press releases, right? Deliberately kept the word writing press releases, something we all know a little bit about. Because that's where we are not using it, but you could, maybe if you're interested. And this is in 2023. If I present to you a 2027 version, most of the green would dominate and less of the red or the orange would be visible. It will be all pervasive. How many of you still have a recipe book written by your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother? How many of you personally write a recipe book still, which you want to leave behind? Thank you, ma'am, which you want to leave behind. What do most people do when they want to look for a recipe? Internet. No brand names allowed. They are not a sponsor. Google's not a sponsor. So no brand names allowed, right? So we use technology in some fashion or the other, right? And we are therefore losing the art. What's the most difficult thing to do today? To write. That's what you said, right? To handwrite a note, right? Even I love you will become a heart. It's no more written out fully. So these are things that we have in our control, and these are things which are fast getting replaced. Because when today you write, I love you, you don't send it like this. You get some animation, you make a video out of it, then you blow it up and put it on social media, right? And the person whom you said I love you to actually doesn't know whether you wrote it or somebody else wrote it. And I think it's the graphic designer telling that lady, I love you. So we are seeing a use of this in communications. And the point I want to drive is, where do we see it go? So it's there in various forms of advanced analytics. So it's there in translation, in recognizing patterns, in visualization, in reports. But the interesting part is really engaging content, right? It's creating content. How many of you have been fooled by a person who's talking to you on a video and you think it's a true person? Any of you had the experience? Right? Anyone saw the recent sporting tournament which was held a few days back? How many ads had talent in it which was generated by a machine? Anybody recalls? None? They were all human beings? Go back and see the match, as painful as it was, and go back and see the ads, as painful as they were. Half of them were not human beings. But they're made to feel like you're a human being. I'm blessed that all of you are real and you are here, because I actually could be a hologram, right? Think about it. And that's what it is. We saw that in the last election, right? We've seen this across the world. Hologram images created to communicate simultaneously across cities at the same time. And that is going to happen. That is the power of technology, right? Now, this hologram can do good things, or it can do nasty things. So there are some risks. Sam Altman has been in the news already twice this week. Bye-bye and hello, right? The man who's actually, you could say, has been the big driver of artificial intelligence, right? And he says, what I lose the most sleep over is the hypothetical idea that we already have done something really bad by launching ChatGPT, that maybe there was something hard and complicated here that the system didn't understand, and now it's already kicked off. So he accepts that what's there is beyond control, almost. And Elon Musk says that. Here is technology with enormous risk. So what is that risk? Do you know who the gentleman in the video is? No? Yes? Who? Can't hear. No, it's not. It's an image of Barack Obama. It's the voice of Barack Obama, but a voice like of Barack Obama. It's not even a sentence spoken by Barack Obama. That is a morphed video making a claim. Now imagine tomorrow, if he doesn't mind my saying it, the great Mr. Rishikesh's voice is morphed and is used. And if you've not seen him, you do not know what he looks like, right? Because radio, unfortunately, still doesn't have a visual element. I actually feel very good it doesn't have, because the voice is where the mystique is. So you imagine if somebody was to morph his voice, if you don't mind my using your example, Rishi, and take over and hack into the radio station and tell you today is a holiday, don't send your kids to school. How many parents you think will act on that information? Who are listening in? Almost none. Most. And it's possible and it's happening. Through the work we do, we know in the recent 2 months, there have been at least 3 clients who have faced hostage-like situations because of such deviant behavior. You read, right? Does anyone here read a newspaper or read a news article through any format? Yeah, you still do? Thank you for doing that. If you do, you read, no? Somebody says, I got fooled online, I transferred money, I did this, I did that, right? By mistake, my money is gone. All of that's happening on a much bigger scale. And it'll be you and me, not just senior people, very senior people, right? Because somebody will fool us through voice and action. And I'm only giving you simple, commonplace examples that hit your daily life. When this happens in a business, the demand is in 4-digit crores, 1,000 crores. Then comes down to 3. If you're lucky, it comes down to 2. So that is the risk that we are facing, and companies have been compelled to do this. So technology does have risk when it plays blind. It need not be accurate. There are sometimes IP violation, individual privacy violation, your own organization's reputation. Did anyone read about what happened in the banking system between US and China recently? Somebody took over, made a pretense, and it ran the US market. The government had to intervene. Nobody knows if that someone was a person, a bot, technology, or, as it's called in football, hand of God. Nobody knows. These are real things happening to us. Now, you're sitting in your office, and your client phones you up, or your boss phones you up, and says, somebody's made a claim that everything that we do has rat poison in it. Right? Let's say the companies that you work with or you represent manufacture the product, which is on daily use. What do you think is going to happen? People are consuming this. What do you think is going to happen? Anybody? Anyone ever had rat poison? You are not going to survive. Okay, not just the rat. So how do you deal with that? You'll go to the police. They'll find out the claim is true or false. You'll do all those things. You'll put out a press release. You don't even know if the person who made the claim and has put it out is a human being or is a bot. Anybody can use millions of bots, hundreds of bots, thousands of bots to do this. So we are dealing with a force that we are not prepared as yet to. And I'm not trying to scare you. It's a lovely business, and stay tuned into this business. So we need certain guardrails, right? It's important to create a guardrail, a framework through which we can build reputation, build trust, and build the advocacy for it. Now, this could be a tool that can destroy you, can be a tool that you can harness. And I'd like to defer to the more positive sides of this. We use a simple way for people to remember. Apologies to those of you on the Android system. Okay? It follows just borrowing from Siri out here. That think of your reputation. It needs to be sustainable. It needs to be inclusive. Be responsible about what you say and do. Share the integrity of information and be transparent in all your declarations, right? So if you, in your organization, you have the use of technology for a number of things, from entering the office to a number of applications, look at your technology assets and see if they are sustainable. Will they survive? Are they inclusive to all? Is it only for right-handed people? Is it only for people who have got both their eyes functioning or all their senses functioning? Is there going to be responsible use of it? So are there controls in place? Is the information being shared built on the robustness of integrity? And whatever declaration is happening, is it transparent? Right? So whether it is saying male, female, either, both, whichever way you like it, or other information that you give, right? When we enter a building, sometimes they ask us to write our phone number and our name. That is only if it's going to be kept confidential. And that is only if there's a need to call you back in case of an emergency. If they don't declare it when you enter a building, do not fill in your number. I always write my name as Aesop's fable, where it doesn't exist. So unless they declare to me they're going to use my number in a secure fashion and they need it if there's an emergency. If not, it's not required to be given. The ministry has put its own framework. It talks of cyber security and cyber privacy, talks of algorithms, data, tech, financial governance, external governance, people, and regulatory. Have any of you been to the website of MITI? I would encourage you to study it. It tells you what this country is doing for you, for your businesses, the clients you represent, or the company you work for, or even for yourself if you're just working on your own, right? The very, very clear guideline given on what is responsible governance when we are dealing with tools like artificial intelligence. If we did a poll across the country today on artificial intelligence, many people will not know. But in this room, I don't think I'll be wrong to assume most of you at least know what it means, have dealt with it, and hopefully have never had to face the consequences of it. But the MITI framework is a very interesting framework which tells you how we work, right? So if you read the Constitution, please also read this, because you have to understand how this protects what we do. So why are we discussing reputation in the light of technology? Because as reputational managers, we now have an opportunity to do a reboot, to change the conversation. The conversation is not with the brand head, marketing head, comms head, PR person. It's actually at the board level of a company, or a promoter level, or a founder level, or a CXO level, depending on what organization you're dealing with. If a founder, a CEO, a board is not discussing what checks and balances they have for putting in place a framework for reputation governance, that's a big opportunity for all of us as a collective industry to address. And to build the toolkit, to build the safeguards, and to build a practice around it. Reputation is no more just the circle of influence, it's also the circle of advocates. So in simple English, people who like and reshare your post, right, is one such way. People who actually pick up the cause you are taking and talk about it are your advocates. When you think of risk, you can't map all the risks because you don't know many of them. But be prepared. What happens when the lights in your house go off? Boom, darkness, you're at home, alone. What do? Anybody? Okay, I think I'm successful, ma'am, in putting everyone to sleep. You must thank me for that. So what do you do when the lights go off? Check the fuse. How do you get to the fuse box from where you are? Now, imagine you were charging your phone, it was on 2% battery. Now what do? No, and that pack also was dead. So do you have a mental toolkit? You know approximately where the fuse box is? Those of you who have this bad habit will have a lighter or a matchbox. Those of you who have a good habit will know where the puja room is, as an example. Not to push any specific belief, but you would know one of the two. Maybe you have a kitchen which still has some appliances that work on fire and not on electricity. What is your toolkit when your client's reputation or your company's reputation is torn to shreds? What is your toolkit? I want to hear some voices. I want confirmation we are awake. It's acknowledgement the lunch is good. Good. So what is your acknowledgement if what happens when your company's reputation is shot by somebody? What do? What's your toolkit? mentally? Do you have one that's ready, printed, shared, and most people know? Is the board aware? Yes, no? Is the board aware? Yes, no? Yes? Your company knows what to do? Thank you, ma'am. If you've been following the space in the last 3 years since COVID, most of the startups have died. What has survived? The mature companies. They are lucky they survived because the others died. They were not lucky because they did anything. You need to think about what you put in place. You know, I think many elevators have, if you've been in an elevator, everyone's been in an elevator in their life? Yes, no? Okay, so we're awake. If you've been in an elevator, it tells you, right? Do this, if the elevator comes to stop. Power goes off, right? How many of you attend a fire drill in your life? Okay? CPR, right? Why don't you have one for your clients or for your business for this? There's a Hindi saying, Izzat gai to Rishi will complete it, band lag gai. Right? Reputation is another way of saying Izzat, colloquially. So why have we as the industry not put a toolkit together? Why have we not thought about this? Why have we not gone to our businesses, our clients, and our fraternity to say, let's build this? So, how many of you have paired your Aadhaar card to your PAN number? Voluntary declaration, not compulsory. Okay, voluntary. Okay. So that's a basic. Why did you do that compliance? If you can't do it, which 3 letters of your life go away? OTP. When a baby is born, the first word they learn is OTP, not mummy. Because the husband and wife are constantly saying OTP aaya, OTP aaya, OTP aaya, right? I've seen it for a number of families where the kids are small. They learn OTP really fast. Like compliance, right? It's in our life every day. And now the government has so much data, authority has so much data, that they know when you don't comply. If you do not file your GST, you don't file your tax, a number of things you don't do, you get a notice. And obviously we comply because nation first. But we also have to comply because we are good citizens. Whichever country you belong to, you are a good citizen of. So look at things that impact your reputation. It is your circle of influence. It's a bunch of risks that you haven't mapped. It is regulation. And now, data sciences and social sciences, all of you in the room are social scientists. I do not know how many of you are data scientists. But if you start playing with it and you start marrying it, is what you will get is a true numeric insight. And when we start marrying it, we start understanding it, then when we look at academia, we look at civil society, we look at media, we look at analysts, we look at the bureaucracy, we see, right? So in certain states, we are critical of the political disposition over there. In certain states, we are worried about the political disposition there. In our own country, we see that in the newspapers, right? We are worried about things, people's views. And I'm not just talking of WhatsApp views. I'm talking of genuine views. So insights that we build now going forward is not just our social measurement. It is coupled with what we do with data science. All companies have a purpose to do something. Our leadership has become one that is of purpose. And 3 things build it: our character of the person, the business, the capability, and the communication. These should be the 3 C's that we really build together. And we understand to build everything from respect for the citizen, respect for the company, respect for the employee, respect for governance. Let's look at another framework, right? Look at the degree of compliances we have. Look at the things we have to deal with. Look at the degree of preparedness you have to be. You have to check if the information was authentic. You have to have a response in terms of a crisis. You have to be clear about what you will do. Employees will not work for you if you don't have transparency. All these things matter because they affect your reputation. My only appeal to all of us collectively is take a proactive stance, proactive leadership, and move ahead to build the reputation of our own little business. Right? It's always going to be under threat, and we will never be fully prepared. But if we are aware about it, then we can do something. Here's just a simple example of what is done by us. There is always a holistic evaluation. Always look at it in a multi-pronged way, not just our own way of doing things. Constantly recommending and measuring our reputation, and agreeing on the action plans, and institutionalizing certain things. Simple institutional thing. Do you know about a door? Why do doors open outwards? When you go from here, see which way the door opens. Outwards, right? Why do doors open outwards? Why is it institution? Anyone answer? Anybody? No? This is not a trick question. There's an emergency, you push to get out. You don't pull to get out. Right? That's an institutional practice. Institutional practice that I at least learned since I was a kid. When a woman enters the room, I stand up. Right? Offer a chair, right? Help someone who's not so physically able. So build your own institutional practices on how you manage your reputation. You will always have a crisis support plan and a crisis support team. How often do you actually run a crisis in your company? How often do you actually do a simulation? How often do you pretend that there is a crisis, and how do we deal with it? In the last few days, please tell me the 3 crises that you have seen. They may not always be related to somebody in India. Any 3 that you remember, last 1 week. Anybody? Yes, sir? Speak up, your voice will be heard.
Where they said that, hello? So Indigo had a crisis day before yesterday when they said that they are unwilling to fly with only 6 passengers on board.
Okay. Who else? Thank you for that. Who else? A big company faced a crisis in social media? Yes, no? Not aware. Huh? A big leader in technology faced a crisis, bounce back. We discussed it earlier, right? Bounce back. How many of you read today's headlines or today's paper? Yesterday's? Last year's? No? Did anyone see this spot on Sunday, which was shown? What was that? Yeah. What was that? What do you think is the crisis in that? Whose career ended that day? Mr. Dependable. How many times was Mr. Dependable repeated on television during the match? Do you know? During the various matches? And can you see what happened at the end? Because he's Mr. Dependable, perhaps nothing happens to him because his contract was over. What do you think would have happened if his contract was not over? Just a quick snapshot about us. I leave you to think what would have happened, right? And was the Board of Cricket Control in India ready to handle this crisis? If they were your client, what would you say and do? Happy to have a conversation. Happy to hand over to Rishi the way you like it.
Hi,
So put
Sunil.
up the slides.
Thanks for the incredible presentation. So my question is about Chief Communications Officers, and particularly what are some of the attributes of a CCO that can empower them to be extremely prepared for whatever disruptions might come, some of the ones which you have covered in your presentation and some which we don't know might arrive?
So I think one C that I didn't speak about is curiosity. Don't ever lose the science, edge, energy, and art of curiosity. Right? Learn and prepare. Pretend you are working in a place, even if you own it, where the roof is going to fall down. How many of you have read asterisks in your life? Or is that a new word for you? Huh? What are the Gauls most worried about? What are the Gauls most worried about? Those of you read. Huh? The sky falling on their heads. Okay? Learn from the Gaul handbook. What is the Gaul handbook? Have one tough guy in your team. Have one advanced perpetrator called a dog who goes and sniffs. Have one smart guy, asterisk. Have one noisemaker, the musician. Have one wise old person. And at the end of it, party bloody hard. Okay? That's how you handle a crisis. It's there in the Gaul handbook. Prepare one. Test it. Play with it. Define the reputation of your company. Either use research and data, because that's very good. Otherwise, feel your stomach. It's called gumption. And define your reputation. And say, this is what it is. And talk to the owner, the promoter, the board, and say, can we protect our reputation? Right? And if you can, that's the best thing to do. Because it's what, if any of you studied financial accounts, there's an entry made called goodwill. Is anybody here a chartered accountant or good with accounts or a CFO? Right? Who is? No? Something called goodwill, right? If you're married long enough like me, you hope you have goodwill left. So there's something called goodwill, right? We call that as our goodwill, but it's also the reputation. Therefore, why do the Tatas survive so far? They've been through a lot. Okay? Change in owners, and I'm not talking of recent, right from its inception. Change of industries. There was a time people called it obsolete. They made a flying marvel called Nano. But still today they own Jaguar. They will turn around Air India. They tell you the time on Titan. It's a great stock to own. How do you think the Tatas build reputation? Anybody? Open discussion. If you represent Tatas, I understand if you don't wish to speak. Anybody? How do you think Tatas build reputation? Sorry? Business practices, employee-centric organization. I'm repeating for benefit of all. Yeah? Consistent product and service. Yes? They walk the talk. They walk the talk. Taj Mahal Hotel after the attack. Who was present over there in the morning? Mr. Ratan Tata and the late Krishna Kumar. Right? So that's how the Tatas have built their reputation. They walk the talk, they practice, they put good products and services, they have processes, they have values, they have a purpose. So to answer your question, who else? It's a conversation. Yes, ma'am.
What would be your suggestion, or what would be your toolkit for the current government, knowing that we are getting into an election next year?
I'll cast my vote next year, and that's my toolkit. Once in 5 years of my toolkit.
As a communication expert.
No, I don't think so. I'm qualified for that, to answer that question.
Just a view.
So I think the government has actually done, regardless of your political view or mine, a phenomenal job of consistently communicating their progress. Right? And not one progress, but multiple milestones. Going to the moon, the road infrastructure, the health infrastructure, what's happening. How many of you have been to a small village where there are 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people? Any of you? Yes, ma'am. What's happening in the villages? I'm coming there so we can hear you and I can speak on your behalf.
I would say completely transformed. I'm talking about aspirational district villages where there was nothing.
Please repeat.
I'm speaking of aspirational district villages which have absolutely very less accessibility from the nearest port of airport or railway or something. Transformed completely in terms of access to gas, electricity, healthcare, because we also provide healthcare over there through technology. And it's a different world altogether. You hear them talking and just see the smiles on their faces.
How many of you have voted at least 4 times in your life? And I mean 4 successive, which means you after 20 or 40 years old. Yeah? Now, how many of you have heard this before in your life? How many of you have never voted in your life and have heard this before? Completely transformed rural infrastructure. So that's the communication. She's talking about her experience, but that's what you read, see, and hear about. And I think those achievements are what they focus on. Forget the rest. The rest of the stuff, his morning show or whenever, ask him. Simple. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to hand over to the world's most famous voice. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, there's one question left. Yeah.
Hi Sunil, my name is Maria. I'm a student at SCO. So I have one question. We live in a world where there are lots of biometric authentication. So can you tell us how this biometric authentication helps in securing communication channels, and how do they redefine the idea of digital identity?
I didn't get your what is it? How?
Biometric authentication.
So how do they get what?
How do they help in securing the communication channels?
So authenticity. Okay, they know who you are, what you are, why you are. Now, many people say, I will not give you all my details because I don't want to have a digital fingerprint. If after you are born, you have cried, which means you are alive, your biometric is taken over by the people who want your biometric. It's gone. Because you have an Aadhaar card, your birth certificate, you were in the hospital or wherever else you were, somebody gave you a vaccine, all data is gone. So those who say, I don't follow Facebook, Instagram, whatever else, I don't have a phone, liar number 1. The day you are born, the world knows what it needs to know about you. And everything else comes from there. So hiding your digital fingerprint or footprint is a pointless exercise. You will get caught. Biometric authentication is one way for people to confirm who you are, and it is authentic, right? When you enter a company, some companies have a fingerprint, more advanced companies have a retina, right? Some people have a two-way process. And believe me, this is going to happen more and more. You know, we are now seeing big organizations taking over large complexes of buildings where many people work. It is their obligation to make sure you are secure from injury, fire, accident, or any other kind of form of hostility. They need to know who you are. But I still don't leave my phone number to a place which doesn't say why I should give my phone number to them. And with that, our next guest is seated here. Thank you so much.